Okay, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
So today's the last. Oops, already cutting out. I got bad. It's starting badly.
Oh.
Is it working? Yeah, now it's working. So this is the last one. What do you think about that? So I was just thinking, in Buddhism, endings are good, beginnings are bad. So the last one, yay, the last one. Should be really happy. I was always saying to people that, people, when they want to console somebody, they say, oh, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Actually, the Buddhist saying is, don't worry, it's not the beginning of the world. Beginning of the world, much worse than the end of the world. So that's kind of the Buddhist way of thinking about that. So the last one does not mean bad. Yeah, it means, actually, I think it may be, it's kind of neutral, neither good nor bad. It's just the way it is. Anyway, let's get going with today's topic.
Wow.
I think the sound is not all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I switched the microphones on purpose, so it's not going to do it on you, but now it does it on the other microphone.
The one I had before was good, but not.
No, it was. It was echoing.
Yeah, it was good, I think.
All right.
It was not a problem before, but yeah. Okay, so let's get started. And today we're going to have a look at the sixth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, Samma Vayama, or right effort in English, also known as Samma Padana. Why does it have two names? Is there any reason for it having two names? I think it's one of those things, it's just different words, kind of meaning roughly the same thing, and sometimes they use one word, sometimes they use another. I don't think there is any significant difference. But what is interesting here, of course, is why does right effort come at this particular point? What is remember we were talking about at the beginning about this being a sequence, like a causal sequence, one thing coming after the other, and each one having a particular position on the path. So what is this idea about right effort coming after the sila, after all the three factors of morality? First comes morality, then comes right effort. Why is that? Isn't there right effort in morality? When you're trying to be kind, you're trying to do the right thing, isn't that part of right effort? It is, yes? It's also kind of part of right effort. So the point here is that now we have gone through the kind of coarse aspects of sila, or morality by speech, by body, and also through livelihood. And now we're moving towards the more refined aspects of morality, the morality that has to do with the mind. So the mind is really what comes into the foreground here when we talk about Samma Vayama, or right effort. And this is one of those very important principles on the Buddhist path, is that you get your factors in the right order. If you want to purify yourself and you want to sort out your mental states and get good mental states or whatever, you have to do things in the right order. If you don't do it in the right order, it doesn't work. If you sit down, you try to meditate straight away, you try to get things to be peaceful without putting in the basis, it's not going to give the results. So this is actually a very important principle of the Buddhist path, and you see it in the beautiful suttas like the Earth Remover Sutta, where they talk about how to purify gold. If you're going to purify gold, you have to start with the coarse defilements, the coarse sand. You can't take the most refined defilements of gold first, and then start with the coarse ones, the middle ones, the fine ones, and then the super-duper fine ones, until the gold is kind of sparkling and shining, just like your mind, That's what it says there. It's beautiful. Similarly, the idea of the mind being like gold. You remove the defilements of gold, the gold becomes sparkling and shining. You remove the defilements of the mind becomes sparkling and shining. But you have to know the right order. And this is a very important idea of self-knowledge as well. What are the main problems that we have that stop us from moving ahead? You have to know what the main problem is, deal with that first, then move on to the more refined ones. So this is why Samma Vayama, right effort, comes now, because it deals with the mental aspects, the mental problems. And then after Samma Vayama comes Samma Sati, right mindfulness, which then is all about meditation practice. When your mind is reasonably pure, then you can move on to meditation. Again, it's about getting things in the right way. If your mind is too full of problems and defilements, meditation is going to be very hard. One of the reasons why meditation doesn't work. Yeah, it's not because you're doing the wrong thing. It's not because you don't understand how to deal with the breath. Yeah, because how should I look at the breath? Well, actually, watching the breath is fairly simple. It's about the defilements of the mind, which is the problem here. So this is what we're going to talk about today: how to deal with. I was going to say mental problems. That might be a bit misleading here.
Just different mind states.
Not kind of mental problems in terms of depression and things. No, okay.
Mind states. Can I ask? You mentioned the two Pali terms, Vayama and Padana.
Yeah.
Would you translate both of them as effort, or do they have slightly different connotations to them?
As far as I know, they mean roughly this. I haven't studied this in great detail, but as far as I know, they mean roughly the same thing. I don't know any difference between them.
Right.
Yeah. But
my memory might be failing me, but I thought that Ajahn Sujata was saying that Padana is more about giving up. That is kind of implied in it. That there is
not some Padana. Some other word, I think.
Oh, it's another
which
one
word
which
is
is
that?
similar, which appears in this formula as well. Anyway, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't think so.
But let's get into it then.
Okay, so now we are going to pass over to Venerable Bodhidhaja and ask him to do just a small introduction before we get into the details of right effort.
Yep, thank you. So since this is also the last day, we will be summarizing some things, and I thought it might be nice to summarize things a little bit, as Ajahn Brahmali did now as well, before we plunge into right effort. The topic for today. And there is a nice sutta here, and it's the Majjhima Nikaya 78. And it talks about unskillful behavior or unskillful habits. So sila, what we were talking about the last couple of sessions. So it has a definition at the beginning. Very often suttas define what's coming and then go into more details. So number one is these are unskillful behaviors or habits. So they are being defined. What are they? Then the next question is, where do they stem from? That's number two. And then number three is, where do those unskillful behaviors and habits cease without anything left over? And the last one is, someone who is practicing like this is practicing for the cessation of those unskillful behaviors or habits. And that will be the sila parts that we talked about, but also the more mental kind of things that Ajahn Brahmali was alluding to, which are like finer and more subtle. All right, so, and what are unskillful behaviors? So we discussed this, unskillful deeds by way of body, speech, and also by wrong livelihood here, or bad livelihood as it says here. And where do these unskillful behaviors stem from? Now we go into the mind. You should say that they stem from the mind. What mind? The mind takes many and diverse forms, but unskillful behaviors stem from a mind that has greed, hate, and delusion in it. It's basically colored by those states. And that leads us to the three doors.
The three doors or the three doors?
Oh, the three doors. There we go.
Yeah,
very good. Thank you.
Doors.
We didn't pick that up, eh? Yeah. Okay, one bad brick.
One bad brick.
We will find a second one somewhere.
One bad door.
Bad door. What is it? The dvara. What is three in Pali again?
Taya. Yeah.
Taya dvara. Okay, so three doors there, and you will see I put them in a specific order. You will find out why. And now with karma, we were talking about karma is only made if there is an intention. So if we intend to act or speak in a certain way. So that's where Chetana comes into the picture. And once that Chetana is there, then we start to think about something. And the thinking, the mind process is usually what comes first. And then what we think spills over into speech. Blah, blah, blah. So that's the wrong speech. Wrong speech, yes. That's blah, blah, blah. That's where the palapa comes from.
That's actually very interesting. This is idle chatter or frivolous speech.
That's right.
And the Pali word for idle chatter and frivolous speech is sampapalapa.
There we go, yes.
It sounds like idle chatter.
Exactly, it sounds the same thing, yeah. Right. And
Sampa in Indonesian, in Bahasa Indonesian, sampa means rubbish apparently.
Oh, there, rubbish talk.
So
there we go.
Rubbish talk, yeah. Sampa.
What is it? Pointless chatter? No. What is it? Ajahn Sujata has another term that doesn't come to me now.
Yeah.
Idle chatter, is it? No, there was another one.
Pointless talk?
Pointless talk or something like that. Anyway, yeah. Right, so that's a little summary there of the 3 doors. And then, of course, now it's not the tree root, it's actually the 3 roots. So please, that's good. Yeah. We picked that one up. So greed, hate, and delusion. What is very important there is that we realize they are like they're like titles, and it goes from very subtle ones to very coarse ones. So they include all the different shadings there as well. And very often for the word greed or desire, there is 2 words used. There's sometimes raga used, and there's sometimes lobha used. So these are the bad roots here. And then we have the good roots, and they are alobha, adosa, and amoha. And sometimes, as we discussed in the past, people get a little bit kind of confused about this, and they think it's just, not doing the bad thing, but it actually includes cultivating the good things as well. That's why I put generosity, kindness, and wisdom there, which is like the opposite of the bad roots. Okay, so we've covered that. Number 3, and where do these unskilled behaviors cease without anything left over? That's what we are after. It's when a mendicant gives up bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind, and develops good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. They give up wrong livelihood and earn a living by right livelihood.
Sounds easy.
Yeah, well, it sounds easy with instructions. You just read it as it is there. You might have also seen that the structure here is very similar to the structure of the Four Noble Truths. Right, and that leads us to the 10 unskillful or 10 skillful courses of actions. This is a bit of a confusing slide, but I put it in there so you can see it on the PDF afterwards. So the next 2 slides will actually split it up for you. So this is the sila part we talked about. So abandoning killing, abandoning taking what is not given, abandoning sexual misconduct. So that's the bodily aspects that we talked about. And then, of course, again, the abandoning implies that you're cultivating the opposite. And that would be the good causes of action. The bad ones is if you are engaging in it. Then the conduct by speech, so abandoning lying, malicious speech, harsh speech, and yeah, that's right, idle chatter, so that one is there. And now we are moving into the mental purification, and as Ajahn Brahmali was already saying, so that has to do with the chitta, but also with chitta, which is the mind, and also with ditthi, which is the view. So again, the words that are used here are pretty like strong words, abandoning, desiring, what others have. So that would be the really kind of coarse motivations that would lead to you doing silly things, or abandoning the ill will, wishing to inflict harm on other beings. But we are now, with the right effort, moving into the much more refined parts of this. And then, of course, right view and wrong view, which are there.
But that is quite interesting, the idea that view is part of mental purification and mental good conduct. These are the dasa kusala kamapata in Pali, the 10 ways of wholesome action. And wholesome action, right view is considered wholesome action. So I think what you're seeing there, this in mental conduct, you're seeing the opposite of the 3 roots. That's what you're seeing, yeah? So the first one is lobha, especially the idea of greed. And then you have the dosa, the ill will, and then you have right view, which is the opposite of moha, really, of delusion or confusion or etc. So that's what you said. But it's kind of fascinating. View in Buddhism is considered almost like an aspect of morality almost.
Well, it is so important. It's very foundational, because once you have the wrong view, then you will have the wrong intentions. And then once you have the intentions, that is the problem. That's where karma is created. So you can't just kind of go like, oh, well, nothing to do with me, there's wrong view, what can I do? You will still run into problems further down the track.
Exactly.
But the Buddha was kind enough to point out to us what right view is. So even if we don't understand it, initially we just try it on like clothing. We try it on and see how it would work for us if we would think in different ways that we would usually think.
And views are, of course, notoriously sticky.
Yes.
If you have a view about something, my God is looking after me, or political views, or whatever it is, people tend to hold on to those things very, very, very tightly.
Tenaciously. Yes.
Yeah, tenaciously. And this is probably one of the reasons why moha is so hard to give up.
Yes.
Yeah? If you really are deluded, if you see the world in the wrong way, and you have you tend to grasp onto those things very tenaciously. Yeah.
Yes, it needs a lot of openness and basically the perspective to open up to other people's views and to, as I said before, try them on and see if they're actually working. Yeah. So the initial step there. Good. And that leads us to number 4. And how is someone practicing for the cessation of unskillful behaviors?
Ding, ding,
Question
ding,
mark?
ding, ding.
Pop quiz? Yes. What is the topic today? 4 right efforts. So that's when they come into the picture here.
Yeah.
So the 4 right efforts. Please.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at the 4 right efforts, and we're going to look at this in obviously quite a bit of detail, because this is what today is all about. Actually, I was thinking we should really have an entire workshop just on the 4 right efforts, because it's so important. Yeah, when we talk about dealing with the mind and kind of clearing out our defilements and getting and all of these kind of things, it's such a massive area, and also it's quite difficult. Yeah, people are not even aware that it's possible to purify your mind, to look at the world in a different way, to overcome your anger and your greed and ill will and all of that stuff. You can, but sometimes it takes a particular attitude. And the Buddha talks about these attitudes in the suttas, how to think about people, how to think about the world in such a way that these things actually decline. This is really a very large topic. There's going to be a very superficial treatment today. If you want a real deep treatment, come on the retreat. Yeah, but you have to type really fast. That's the only downside. So that's why I heard we're working on a new system so that we don't have to type so fast. Is that right, Lehar? Yeah? The slow typers also get a chance to come on the retreat. That's kind of the new system. More compassion for the slow typers. So,
it was actually quite a bit of a challenge. Yeah, we both had so much material, so it was how can we summarize it, or how can we, you know, we had to chuck some things out and say, okay,
take this out.
Just take this.
More pictures. We'll keep
more
simple.
pictures, yes. Keep them happy.
Keep them happy. So we're going to talk about these 4 right efforts, and again, it's all about how to deal with the mind. Actually, 4 right efforts, there's different ways of looking at these 4 right efforts. On the one hand, they are the sixth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. So they have a particular function as the 6th factor, where they are about purifying your mental world, basically. But also right effort also really relates to all the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. So when you are trying to speak in the right way or act in the right way, even when you're trying to meditate in the right way, even when you're trying to have right view, really it is about right effort. So there's kind of 2 viewpoints, depending on kind of the narrow viewpoint, when it looks at as a specific factor on the path, and the broad viewpoint, where right effort really includes everything here. And it's quite important to remember that distinction, because what we're going to talk about now is really right effort as the specific factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. What we have to do to purify the mind. So this particular sutta I'm going to look at now is a particular way of thinking about right effort. Right effort is also defined in a very broad way. We'll look at that afterwards. But this is a particular way of thinking about this. When you have a particular way, it makes it more easy to relate to. If you get a very broad definition, you don't know where to start or where to end. You think, oh, yeah, sounds good, but I don't know how to use this. But if you get a particular definition, it's easier to know how to use. The idea with this workshop is that when you go back home, you can actually use some of these things. That's kind of the idea. You can use this in your daily life. There was someone saying last time we were here, is she here today? I'm more confused than ever. And I thought, oh no, we are failing. We are failing badly in our role as teachers. We're not really succeeding at all. So I really hope that you can, when you go back, you will be able to use some of these things in your daily life, and to actually use them and apply them so as to move forward, to have less troubles in life and more contentment and happiness and all of these kind of. That's kind of the point of this. And but thank you very much for that feedback. Sometimes I know it gets a bit detailed, but I think what will happen over time is that as you allow these things to sink in, clarity will come over time. Yeah, especially if you are a beginner, I can actually understand why this gets confusing, because there's a lot of information, a lot of things happening.
Your response was perfect and actually worked really well.
Really? Okay, marvelous. I'm very glad that you are saying that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, we always expect, we get this recipe book and we exactly know, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then it's going to work. But there is much, much more reflection involved, and actually going inwards and seeing how it works for yourself.
And this is one of the things we will look at today, the idea of using reflection in particular. So let's just very briefly just summarize these 4 right efforts as they are found in this sutta. AN again, AN stands for Anguttara Nikaya, translated usually into English as numerical discourses. I haven't really explained very well what these little things in bracket mean. So numerical 4 means that there is 11 chapters. It's the 4th chapter, book of 4s, with 4 things. That's why 4 right efforts are there, because it's 4 things. And 14 means the number of the discourse, or the number of the sutta, sutta 14. Anyway, I'm just kind of guiding you a little bit, so that when you go back, you can understand what's going on. 4 right efforts. There are these 4 efforts. Exciting.
We can follow so far.
so far,
so far, so good.
So far, so good. Yeah. The effort to. So the first one is the effort to. So the effort to restrain. This is number 1. And what that means is that sometimes your mind is, there are kind of, if you like, defilements, or they are greeds or anger or whatever, that are kind of under the surface, and they're trying to come through into your mind. And sometimes you can feel that. You can feel that there is a situation that you're in, and you can feel that your emotions are kind of bubbling up underneath, waiting to come out. And you want to get upset, or you don't want to, but sometimes you can see upset kind of coming through beneath, And then you have to find a way to stop that from happening, How can I stop myself from getting upset, or angry, or greedy, or foolish, deluded, or whatever it is in this particular situation? And this is the idea of restraint. You can also call it avoiding, as Venerable Bodhidhaja mentioned to me the other day. You can call it avoiding. What was the other nice words you had?
I have it on the slide. It will come later.
Coming later on. Okay, I shouldn't kind of preempt everything.
No, that's fine. There was a certain aspect of guarding as well. Guarding your senses.
Guarding, exactly. Guarding is a good one. Guarding, So that is the first one, Stopping things from arising. Not getting these things to come up. But what happens if they do arise? Sometimes, it's too late. What happens then? Well, then we have to give them up. This is the second part. You can see it's very systematic, this Buddhist teaching. Stopping things from arising. If they do arise, then you have to give them up. So what are some of the techniques that we use for giving these things up? And sometimes, one of the things that we will be looking at, which is very interesting about this, when you hear a word like restraint, very often the word restraint implies willpower in the English language. You have a restraining order against someone. It means that they will be held back if necessary, and the police will come and say, no, you can't go there, and they will hold you back. It's restraint. Or you restrain a child from running into the street. It means that you hold the child back. Don't, there's a car there, dangerous, come back. So restraining has a sense of willpower in the English language. So one of the interesting things that we were going to discuss is, what does it actually mean on the Buddhist path? Does it mean willpower, or does it perhaps mean something else? Giving up, same thing. What exactly does it mean to give up? Does it mean that when you get angry, you suppress the anger with willpower? Or is there another way of giving up these defilements? And these are very important things, because if you understand these things in the right way, they become very powerful tools in giving up the defilements of the mind. Like really powerful, like bing, and it's gone. Something like that anyway. So so these are the 2 ways of then giving up on bad mental states. And then we come to the good mental states, because the Buddhist path is not just about getting rid of the bad, it's also about building up the good. So the next one is developing good qualities, Developing something, developing joy. Yay, Buddhism is the best. Something like that. And And this feeling inside that you're on the path, you're living the spiritual life, you think, wow, this is marvelous. My life isn't so empty anymore. You have a sense of meaning and purpose and all these things. And you develop good qualities, you develop mindfulness, you get a clarity of mind. You actually know what's going on around you. Wow, I know what's going on now. I used to be walking around this fog all the time, but now things are becoming clear. Developing all these good qualities, having a good heart inside, etc.
And you realize it's peaceful. I think that's very often the flavor that kind of comes through. Mm-hmm. The other things are, they stimulate you maybe in a certain way, but there isn't peace. It's just friction and problems.
It's a deeper kind of happiness that you're developing. Yeah, that's a very important point. Sometimes people think that Buddhism sounds really boring and terrible, and you have to give up all the fun in the world. But of course, that's not the point. The point is you give up something coarse to actually develop something more refined, something far preferable. That's kind of the point of this. So, that's a good point. And then the last one of these 4 efforts is to preserve. And this is the idea that once you do develop something positive, you preserve it, you maintain it. You don't actually allow it to go. And then you actually, not just do you preserve it and maintain it, but you develop it further. The idea never to really be satisfied. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? Never be satisfied. It sounds like the anti-Buddhist way of thinking. Not to be content, but to also know that there is a more to be done on the Buddhist path. You're not really fully satisfied until you reach the end of the path. So there's this continuous movement towards something. And this has, to me, always been one of the most amazing things about the Buddhist spiritual path. You start practicing and you start feeling good about what's happening. You feel a bit of joy, you feel a bit of happiness. And then you realize you take one more step. There's even more joy here, more happiness, more peace. Take another step, even more. And this is kind of this magical thing, and you start to extrapolate, In other words, you look into where is this going to go, and you think, and it becomes really amazing when you kind of look at what you have already done, and you know that there's even more to come in the future. And that's sort of the amazing part of this path. So you preserve, you develop, you take it further. So these are the 4 right efforts.
Yes, if I just might drop in here, one conversation I had with Ajahn Brahmali, which was one of the one-liners which kind of stuck with me when I went up to him and said, there's some nice mind states, there is some mindfulness, how am I going to preserve this now? And he just said, don't destroy it.
Don't destroy it.
Because it happens so quickly. We do things in day-to-day life, and we basically chuck something so beautiful and so valuable just away because the value doesn't scream at you like the billboards do. Mm-hmm. It's a different
you have to be
kind,
sensitive to see the value of these things to some extent.
And then just be very, very, very gentle and really respect it and grow it and preserve it.
Preserve it.
Take some sugar, cook it up, and put it in the pantry for later.
Yeah. I'm very good at taking sugar.
Okay. Shall we do meditation before we?
Let's do some meditation. Yeah.
But I think they want to unwire us first before we do that. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Unwiring commence. Yeah. Just tell me what to do. I will do it. Stand up again. Okay.
There's a button. Yes.
Yeah. Go for it. Keep. Yeah. Just.
Good. Oops. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful. Cheers. Okay. We're unplugged.
We're unplugged. Okay. Okay. Are there any questions or comments so far? Would you like some of this, Venerable? Is this good for your tummy?
It's the chocolate, isn't it?
What is it? Not sure.
Maybe a little bit.
What is it, Veronica? What is this? Chai. Okay,
yeah,
chai.
should be fine.
Chai.
Thank you. Chai. That's Thai for yes, isn't it? Or, no, what?
Tea.
Some language? Anyway, you have a question?
I do, yes. Ajahn just mentioned that all these are to be done, the right effort is through wisdom power, and
That's coming soon, yeah?
Yep. We haven't actually mentioned wisdom power yet, but you've been brainwashed already.
Coming soon,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, maybe I should wait, I don't know. Anyway, I'll ask my question so you...
Okay.
You can drop it in there.
Because the way that these things are expressed is like Chandan Janeti, Vayamati, Viryam Arabhati, Chittam Paganhati, Padahati. They are quite very strong words.
Yes.
Usually when somebody reads, it implies willpower, especially there's Chandan Janeti and things like that. So to have a good understanding how it's actually the relationship between the right amount of wisdom and the right amount of, there is still some will, but to do it in the right way or something like this for these things would be, clarity is important, otherwise it's quite a hard one, this right effort.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's a very important point. How do you actually apply the mind in the right way? What does it mean to apply the mind? What does it mean to make an effort? This is one of the things we want to discuss in a bit of detail. But if we don't touch on everything, let us know, and then we will discuss it more. Yeah.
I think just when you were asking the question, I was reflecting internally, and I thought maybe it's just important that there is a firmness, that it is very clear that, there is something to be done or something to let go to make sure those mind states don't get a footing in your mind. But it's not with this very strong effort kind of thing. Yeah, I hope we can go into this, and if we don't go enough,
Especially the last two words, I'm interested to know Chittam Paganhati Padahati.
Right.
The meanings.
We do have the Pali in the formula there, in the first one, yes. Okay, Ananda.
Ajahn, connected with what Venerable
Karunika.
Harish, sorry. And the right effort is the factor that comes up in every, how many, in the 37 enlightenment factors, how many, 3 of 4s and 2 of 5s, and then 5 and then 7 and 8. So 7 subgroups. I think in every subgroup, even in the Satipatthana, I think it is the Atapi, I think denotes in an indirect manner right effort. Is that right, Ajahn?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah.
Atapi?
Virya, Atapi,
Virya.
Padana, Vayama, all of these words. Yeah.
All those words.
Yeah.
So is that the only factor that is coming up in every single subgroup, and is that the reason why Buddha is placing so much of effort?
There's 3 things that come up regularly in all those groups, and that is effort, mindfulness, and samadhi.
Mindfulness and samadhi.
And it's very interesting because if you look at those 3 factors, they're all about developing the mind. So that shows you the importance of developing the mind in the Buddha's teachings. That is really the critical thing, how we use our minds. So those are the 3 things that come up almost across the board all the time.
Do they, because they come up at different various stages, and do they, you referred to Pansudovana Sutta, the soil removal, and the gradual process you mentioned.
Dirt removing,
So, in the goal remover, And so, is it because at various stages, gross and then less gross and then subtle and all that, would it be Atapi and then, Chanda, Chitta, Virya, and then in that form, is it coming to from the grossest to the subtlest as we come to the Noble Eightfold Path, Samavayama?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes the Buddha uses slightly different words depending on what it is, what kind of effort that we're making. So the effort changes over time. So padana is, what we normally call effort is when we actually apply ourselves more. And then as the mind becomes more purified, the effort is almost automatic. That's called virya. Virya is energy, is the natural energy of the mind. So the effort actually becomes more and more subtle until the point where, especially when you are a stream mentor, it's automatic. Yeah? You just do it automatically because you know it is going to lead to suffering. It's like taking your hand out of the fire. Yeah, you don't have to think too much. You just take it out. Yeah, should I take it out? No, not sure. Okay, too late already. Yeah, you just take it out. So this is kind of the mind already leaning in the right direction. Yeah.
That probably is the reason why when you were teaching us, what is it, Mahachattari?
Chattari Sikha Sutta.
Chattari Sutta,
yeah.
grade 40. Chattari Sikha Sutta, isn't it?
Chattari Sikha Sutta.
Sikha Sutta. Yeah. And in that, I think, when we were reading that on your recommendation a couple of weeks ago, I think it had that these three factors run around, and so therefore it is the essential part, I guess. These three factors, what you mentioned:
view, padana, effort, and mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Didn't have samadhi. Samadhi is a bit too advanced, probably, but these three are always kind of there.
Always come together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah. Okay.
Two questions, so let's carry on and try to get into the more details.
Or is it?
Well, I don't know. It's. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. This is the detailed exposition of this one. You want?
No. Well, I mean, but we were going to share it anyway.
Yeah, you do, yeah. You can be the.
I maybe just wanted to mention it in here when I thought about right effort in the past. And also wanted to make sure it doesn't get this kind of gritting your teeth effort. I used the word inclination first because that kind of really made sense to me. So you're inclining the mind in a certain direction. And an inclination is something which is not so forceful. You're just kind of like leaning. And if you're leaning enough towards something, then you will be falling in that direction, like the proverbial tree, or like the simile of the tree in there. But then when I used inclination, some people came back and said, well, I think that is right intention. Well, now, where does it fit? So I thought about it for a little bit longer, and then the word that came up that made sense to me was application, that Ajahn Brahmali also mentioned. We had a few discussions about it. And the idea there is where you apply your mind to, so what is the object, and how the applying of the mind is happening. So the important thing is that it has to be applied, but how that application is actually happening, that is the most crucial part. Because if we force it too much, then it doesn't really work. Okay, so we wanted to go through the formulas of each one. So that's the first one. It's when you generate enthusiasm.
Yeah, so we should say here straight away that this is coming to, at the end here, it says you generate enthusiasm for what? For the non-arising here of unarisen, unwholesome qualities. Yeah, so there are unwholesome qualities that are kind of there under the surface, and to stop those unwholesome qualities from coming up, this is what you do. You generate enthusiasm. Yeah, so these are this is what this is referring to. And do you want to say something about that?
No, I think that's
okay.
Good.
So this is the Pali word here, chanda, is quite nice. Chanda really means desire, on the in Buddhism, but it doesn't mean desire in a bad way, because desire can be many things. If you talk about desire for the worldly things, it's kind of a negative desire. Yeah, I want to be famous, I want to be rich, or I want to be beloved by everyone, or whatever. It's kind of worldly things. But chanda is more like a desire which includes the wholesome desires. Yeah. I want to practice, I want to be kind. That's kind of, I want to be kind. Okay, it's cool to be kind. It's not bad to be kind, it's cool to be kind. So this is the chanda here, and this is why I think enthusiasm is kind of nice, because it kind of gives a different angle to the idea of chanda. You're enthusiastic about living in the right way, doing the right thing, because you know it is right. It's a kind of a higher kind of desire, a desire which has more to do with an understanding of what is going on. So I think generates enthusiasm is nice. This is Ajahn Sudato's translation, and I think it's quite a nice one for that particular word.
And it reminds me of what Ajahn Brahm says when he goes back to the Vinaya and says, a chanda there basically means to approve, to consent as well. So it can have that kind of aspect.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be this,
You generate consent.
Well, maybe not. But you consent to the wholesome. Oh well, but that would be it's the unwholesome ones. Yeah.
No? Yeah.
Okay.
But then there's also the idea of generate. You have to generate these things.
Sure,
They're not always there. Janeti means literally to give birth to. That's what it means. To regenerate, make these things come into existence. So this is the other thing, is that the application of the mind to generate these qualities. That you actually, how do you generate enthusiasm? Well, one of the ways is to have right view. You realize, gee, there's something to be done here. This is important. This matters. This is what life really is about. I'm kind of doing all this kind of stuff which is irrelevant, but this is really it. And then you generate this enthusiasm for practicing the path. And that is, it's a nice word, enthusiasm. And it kind of makes sense. Okay.
Okay, next one. The Vayamati.
Samma Vayama.
Yes. They try. And try and try and try.
Try, yeah.
So there's three things we have to do. I always said, practice, practice, practice.
So this is effort. This is Samma Vayama, right effort. So this is to make an effort or to try. This is again Ajahn Sudarta's translation. And this is where it gets interesting. What does it actually mean to try? This is what Venerable Karunika was just on about just a couple of minutes ago. What does it mean when we try something here? How much willpower do you require? What are the main factors that go into trying it? And one of the things that we intend to show is that in the suttas, one of the main things that go into trying is not forcing yourself, it's not willpower, it's not kind of, using the will, which is so common in the human experience. Willpower is kind of raised to something beautiful in society, and then, if you have enough will, you will be able to do it. Just willing is kind of the thing. But actually, the Buddha doesn't say that. Willing often gets in the way, according to the Buddhist teachings. Especially when it comes to meditation practice, if you will too much, it's going to block your ability. So Buddhist teaching almost goes against all the common way of thinking about what makes you successful in the world. Worldly success, people think, comes from willpower. Success in the Dhamma does not come from willpower very often. So where does it come from? If trying doesn't come from willpower, if trying doesn't come from gritting your teeth and, I'm going to try really hard, where does it come from? And the answer is, it comes from wisdom. This is why right view is at the beginning of the Noble Eightfold Path. Everything comes from right view. Right view is just another way of thinking about wisdom. Right view, wisdom, saddha, faith, all of these things are so closely related to each other. It comes from wisdom. And if you are able to reflect on something in the right way, being wise, using wisdom power is one of Ajahn Brahm's words. He uses that deliberately to kind of contrast it with willpower. So use wisdom power instead. So this is a very important point, and we'll look at this more later on, exactly how this works, what we mean by this. Now it's just an intellectual idea. What do we mean by applying wisdom power? Very important to be as clear and detailed as possible, so you can see what's going on here. So this shows you the importance of interpreting the suttas in the right way. How do we interpret these words? What do they actually mean? And this is where you have a big advantage if you are a monk or a nun. We are kind of the professional Buddhists. We're doing this, we just walk around with the alms bowl, people put food in, and then we teach. That's a kind of professional Buddhist. So because you have read a lot of suttas, and you have read it in Pali and English, you have an idea of how these words are used in context, how it all fits together. This is the advantage of having studied these things in quite a lot of detail. And then you can kind of hone in on how this is done. So we're going to talk about this more later on. I'm not going to. So let's.
Sure. But also the word try. The English word has a bit of a connotation that you just you try it out, trial and error, failing forward. So if it goes wrong one time, you learn from it. I mean that's the other thing as well. That we say suffering is inevitable. It will happen. But at least we should learn from it when it actually does. But
I don't think Vayamati means try in that sense.
Right.
So I think here is also, when you translate, you have to be very careful not to read too much into the translated word. But still, I think the point is valid. The point is valid, So,
not a Pali scholar. And then arouse, energy, virya.
So this just means that you do it.
Yeah, I guess it's connected to the enthusiasm there as well, that you bring up your energies, you gather mental strength, I guess.
So this could mean many things. It could mean that you get that energy from some source. You are aware of where energy, how to get energy. It could mean reading a sutta and thinking, yay, I got to do this, or listening to a Dhamma talk and then getting inspired. The energy comes from that. Or it could just mean starting to apply yourself, to actually doing things, getting out on your walking path. Well, this I guess we are very lucky. We have walking paths in the monastery. We are very lucky, right? This is one of the great things about being a monastic. You actually have a specific walking path all for yourself. Isn't that pretty cool? It's nice, isn't it? So when we have, for those of you who have never been to the monastery, I think some of you haven't been to the monastery very much. So if you come to the monks or the nuns' hut, you have a small hut, small space. But what you have, instead of having a large internal space, you have a walking path right outside. One step out, tick, and you're on the walking path. It's quite nice, isn't it? So then you walk, tick, 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 back and forth. And so this is one way of then arousing energy. You can do this at home as well, maybe wherever really. The idea is just to have a place where you can kind of walk. So there are different ways of arousing energy. It just means that sometimes you have to apply yourself physically. Other times you get inspired by the sutta or talk or whatever. The energy gets, the energy comes up, and then you are practicing. Arabhati means like to initiate very often. So you initiate energy, you get it started. This is kind of one of the meanings here. Okay.
Next one. Exert the mind. So that's maybe one of those more
chittang pagganhati.
Strenuous ones. From how it sounds.
So exerting the mind. Pagganhati, the word pagganhati, I think. What is pagganhati? Pagganhati, from ganhati, to take. So it's like almost like grabbing hold of the mind, almost.
That's maybe where Ajahn Sujata sometimes used applying them. Oh no, is it Bhikkhu Bodhi? Applies his mind and strives?
Yeah, that's Bhikkhu Bodhi.
So that's apply.
Applies
that's where
the mind and strives.
Application comes in.
So you're applying the mind, exactly.
So maybe just using the word applying the mind is a bit softer, I don't know.
So you apply the mind,
You don't grab the mind, but you apply your mind.
Sounds good, Sounds good,
Yes.
And hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Let's not go too fast,
I can be soften things up a bit.
So I think, again, this is very similar to the previous one about bringing up energy. It just means that you use your mind, But this, again, gives you this sense. And, again, the difference between applying the mind through willpower and applying the mind through wisdom. This is, again, one of the differences here. You can apply the mind in different ways. And the idea here is not necessarily willpower. Pagganhati, which means to grasp or to get hold of, may seem to mean willpower, but actually not necessarily so. Chittang pagganhati may just mean yoniso manasikara. So you kind of guide the mind, you apply the mind, you point the mind in the right direction. And that is really all it means sometimes. It actually can be a very simple and very subtle effort just to shift your attention in the right way. Okay, this person, I don't usually enjoy the company all that much. How can I look at this person in a new way with a bit of compassion, a bit of understanding? We're all suffering. Everyone has problems. And that is applying the mind. Very simple little things. Okay.
And maybe also with the application of mind, that it is... this initial and then sustained application. So, but you apply it, and then you leave it alone as much as you can. And then if it strays off, then you kind of bring it back again. But if we have this kind of holding happening there, that can be a problem.
Can be painful and unpleasant,
Yes, samadhi headaches come from there.
Samadhi headaches,
That's
exactly.
what Ajahn Brahmali was teaching somewhere, and there's like, I have this headache. We call it samadhi headache. He said, I've never heard about samadhi headache before. What is this?
It's quite common. It's unfortunate, but it means that people are putting in the wrong kind of effort, really.
They're crossing their eyes, watching their breath. No wonder. You feel sore up here. Okay.
Last one, striving.
Last one. And then they strive.
Padahati, this is actually related to padana, which is sammapadana, right effort. So this is the same thing again.
Okay.
So strive, it sounds really sounds really rough. But again, we will look at what this means later on.
Strive on with diligence.
Strive on with diligence, yeah.
Same word?
That's
A different one.
Appamadena Sampadeta,
Okay.
which is the translation used by somebody. This is the last words of the Buddha, when he passed away. Vaya Dhamma Sankara Appamadena Sampadeta. I often translate as strive on with diligence. That's kind of a very round translation, but anyway, yeah.
Ajahn Brahmali would say, very good, carry on.
Very good, carry on. That's not the translation, that's right.
We asked Ajahn one time, what are the last words of the Buddha? He said, very good,
carry on.
Okay, so, and that's what we already defined, so...
So that bad... hold on.
Sure, please.
Yeah, don't go too fast. So, we need to talk about bad and skillful qualities, don't we? Yeah.
Okay,
what does it mean?
Well, they were defined before. It's bodily, mental...
Yeah, so we have kind of looked at them in a fairly broad...
hopefully,
yeah.
But I do have another slide coming up,
yeah.
The picture.
Okay.
But I don't know, you want to spend some time?
No, not really. It's just that it can be anything which is a bad quality of mind. Of course, the root problems are, desire, ill will, and delusion or confusion, but really it's a kind of anything which is a negative quality of the mind, jealousy or envy or fear, and there's a large, when you read the suttas, the Buddha often gives a large sequence of adjectives or nouns that describe, various kinds of bad qualities, possessiveness, domineering attitude, arrogance, pride, there's many. So sometimes you just have to investigate a bit, but a lot of it comes from very simple defilements. The two of the root problems, I think, is just general desire in the world, worldly desires. That's a root thing which tends to give rise to many of the other defilements. One of the nice things to do is to kind of focus on a few basic things, and they very often turn out then to morph into other defilements, other unskillful qualities. So if you focus on those few things, you actually eliminate so many unskillful qualities. And one of the basic ones the Buddha talks about in the 5 hindrances, the first one, sense desire or worldly desire or whatever you want to call it, kama chanda. Yeah? And this is a kind of a root problem which gives rise to ill will and gives rise to all kind of things. So that is one thing to focus on. Another one is the sense of self is often very problematic. The sense of self leads to all kind of problems with arrogance and pride, and a lot of unskillful qualities come from that. So by reducing the sense of self a little bit, which is reducing delusion really, then also we are kind of heading in the right direction. Anyway, so this is a very broad thing, but we can narrow it down to a few kind of core problems, I think.
Okay, good. So I think the next one is the primary school teacher in me. I also taught the teens in Melbourne, so I always try to bring up some kind of picture that makes sense. So everyone is familiar with this one. You can actually see it at the back there. So it is the idea of escaping from something, and much avoiding is one, and then we put restraint in there. And in Melbourne, they're pretty much in the same situation like we are here in Western Australia, that they're in the forest, and that there is a really high danger of fires coming, and that we have to be aware of the danger, and then we make sure we don't get ourselves into that danger zone. But I also told them that in Victoria, for example, when it reaches a certain level, I think it's like, the second highest, then the community usually decides, okay, it's too dangerous, so we are going to leave before the fire might hit, so that we don't lose any lives because we don't have any bunkers or we don't have enough cars or whatever. And we tell the lay people who want to come to the monastery. So it also means not to go to a certain place. And the other thing that I usually mention is one of our monks was doing martial arts in the past. And the teacher always told him, it's very good if you learn all these skills, but the most important thing that you have to know is don't be there. So don't be in a place where it's dangerous, where you would have to apply those kind of things. And then the other way of putting it in modern English, as the Beatles did, I usually use let it be. So we are letting something be. We don't even get involved with it. We stay apart. We stay at a safe distance.
Have we got a Beatles video coming up?
No.
Okay.
But we did actually have the Let It Be song. And
Yes.
there it actually was, let it be, let it
Okay.
go, let it grow, and let it show. That's the 4 great efforts. But we're going to go into that later down the track. Okay, so that's just a bit of that one. And contentment is important as well.
Yeah, so this is a slide I showed before on one of the other workshops in connection with right livelihood. As a monastic, the right livelihood is just to be content with the bowl and the robes. Yeah, but there's another aspect to the idea of contentment. It is actually the beginning of overcoming the unwholesome states of mind. Yeah, because when you are content, it means you don't really have any desires. Yeah, you are happy. You still have some desires, but you have less desires. You don't want to accumulate things, and because you are content as well, there's less chance of ill will arising, because ill will and desire are so closely connected to each other. So, and if you look at the gradual training, you have all the factors of morality: the right speech, right action, right speech and right action, and then comes contentment. Before you get the restraint. Yeah? So this is kind of an intermediate stage there. And it's the beginning of the purification of the mind. You have to be content. And this is, I'll just show you again what it looks like, because just to remind you, this is what we had a look at last time, but have another look at it just very quickly again, because it's a very beautiful passage, I think. Yeah, you are content with robes to look after the body, and alms food to look after the belly. And that's all you care about, is you have your robes and you have your alms bowl and you have nothing else in the whole world. That's all you have. This is kind of the ideal monastic. These days, it's embarrassing. I have laptops, yeah.
Well, we mentioned
robes, bowls, and laptops. I don't know. But actually,
we mentioned last week that it is the monastery's laptop.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for reminding us. It belongs to the monastery. It's not my laptop. Yeah, so I made.
and it's used for the Dhamma, which is great.
Yeah, so we have good excuses. That we're saying.
Yeah, it's making good karma. It will be reborn as, I don't know, in the next lifetime. Plasma screen TV, or what is the next level up? I don't know.
Okay, that's true. So yeah. Good. So thank you for those encouraging words. I'm glad. But it's actually a very beautiful image, yeah, this idea of a monastic who lives a very simple life. And that is still the case. A lot of monastics still who live very simple lives. And we also try to live up to those standards. So it's, you go to Ajahn Brahm and you look at what he has. Ajahn Brahm lives a very simple life as well. He doesn't, he has a few things. He has a few books and things on his shelf. And people often like to give Ajahn Brahm things. And Ajahn Brahm says, I get given all this stuff, but I don't really need it. I have to give it away again afterwards, And this is one of the strange things people want to give. But then as a monastic, very often you don't need those things that are given to you. So then you have to kind of give it away again. So even though people come from very good intentions, and that is, of course, very praiseworthy and great, and for Ajahn Brahm sometimes what happens is that it gets given to Ajahn Brahm, and then some of the people who do auctions, they do auctions with Ajahn Brahm's requisites, they then sneak into Ajahn Brahm's hut, and they say, these things, you don't need those, Ajahn, can we take those and auction them? And because they have been in Ajahn Brahm's kuti for a year or so, they are considered holy, so they become holy after staying there for a year. And is that true? Maybe there's some truth to that, because you imagine hanging around Ajahn Brahm's kuti, you get a bit of that Ajahn Brahm vibe, So it's maybe not entirely wrong. So then, so maybe that's, so make sure, if you give something to Ajahn Brahm, make sure you give something that can be auctioned afterwards. That's maybe the kind of that's kind of the lesson here, in this. I'm just messing around, don't listen to what I'm saying.
And I also wanted to make a point that you were content with your old computer for so many years, and the E key wasn't working anymore, and you had to use another keyboard to actually make it work.
But what was nice though is that, and that's what happened here. Someone suggested, can we buy your computer? And I thought, maybe that's a good idea. I didn't really go seeking for it. That's always quite nice.
You
when
were
kind of-
contented with your robes, bowl, and laptop.
and lack of E and laptop. We should add something to this line here, and laptop. Yeah. No, we shouldn't do that.
But that is what contentment is really about. You know, I mean, you're not looking for the next newest model. You're not looking for new things because you're so happy with what you have.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, stretching it too far, is it?
We had to write a new sub-commentary, I think, to the sutta.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are messing around, but you get the idea. Ajahn Brahm messes around a lot as well.
It's beautiful little passage. Anyway, let's move on. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck here for a long time. Yeah. So whenever you go, you set out taking only these things with you. So if I were to leave, I would obviously leave the laptop at Bodhidhaja Monastery, where it lives and where it belongs. Yeah. I remember when Ajahn Sujato, he left Bodhidhaja Monastery, he had only one bag, one shoulder bag. Yeah, and that's all he had. And it's kind of nice. And that looked almost exactly like this. I didn't actually ask him to see the content of his bag, but still.
More smiles.
But it was it had a kind of beautiful feeling about it when you only leave with one shoulder bag, and everything. That's all he had. That was the bowls, the robes, and everything. And you have the idea it's like a bird. Wherever you fly, the wings are its only burden. And this can be extended. This is obviously for monastics, but this can be extended also to be true for lay people. Yeah, the idea is that whatever you have, you try to be contented with that. And the moment you are contented with your life and what you have, and I know that many of you have that kind of lifestyle. And what a wonderful thing that is, because so much of that striving for the worldly possessions, the striving for worldly praise or worldly status or whatever it is, it kind of falls away because you're happy with the way things are. You don't really need anything more. You don't want anything more. And you can see how so many of the defilements of the mind, they die down when you have that contentment. It's a beautiful state of mind, and you're now moving towards the purification of the mind as a consequence. So I'm not dreaming about my next laptop or the monastery's next laptop. That's kind of the... Anyway, so enough about laptops. So,
shall we do one more before we?
Yeah, I think so. That's what I can't remember what comes next.
Next is the second one.
No.
Oh, restraint. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
One more.
So this is the. This is quite involved. Let's have a quick meditation before we get into this.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyone has any comments or questions you'd like to ask at this point?
Did we
Everyone.
answer Venerable Karunika's question? Did we answer your question?
There's more. Still going to talk more about it later on as well. So yeah, Prem, please.
Thank you, Ajahn. I'm thinking of practical application of these 4 right efforts into a normal daily routine, or a person who doesn't have the stillness developed still. If you do a table, scientifically I'm talking about, and list unskillful qualities that you have developed, which you want to get rid of, and unskillful qualities that you have not got, and then you don't want to get them, list them. You don't want to, acquire them. And skillful qualities that you already have, you don't want to lose them. Another list. Another column in the table. And skillful qualities that you haven't acquired yet. So can I, for those, put that? I'm thinking.
I think sure, you can do that. But I think one of the things is to keep things quite simple. I think is important, because if it gets too complicated, it becomes very hard to practice. So I tend to focus on 1 or 2 things that are really important for you. And the typical thing that you can focus on is ill will. Because that is kind of a problem for most people. You have some ill will. How can you have more compassion and care for people? And the second one is just having less attachment to the world in general, and understanding the downside of worldly things. Those are the things that I would kind of focus on. But you can, if you want to broaden it out, people are different, you can do that. But if you make it too complicated and you have too many things in your mind, then chances are that you may not be able to make so much headway, perhaps.
We start with a very short list, and then
very short list. One item, very short list.
2 or 3.
Can you have a list of 1 item?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Or find the top 3, and I think it is important that they can be defined. That when they do actually pop up, that you realize, this is what I'm dealing with, and it keeps coming up again and again. Like Ajahn Brahmali, when he talks about the simile of the snake, where he knew there is snakes out in the forest, and then if you have something, a wholesome quality, a virtue, which can replace that other unwholesome one, that might be helpful. Because very often we get so stuck in the defilement that actually comes up that we don't have enough space and wisdom in the situation to turn around and go like, I could deal with this situation with like more patience, or with more kindness, or with more compassion, or whatever the virtue is, and just be aware of that virtue and develop that to take care of the situation. But I do agree. If you have huge lists and maps, and then you're like, is it this or is it that? So in a situation, it has to be fairly quick.
I'm just thinking of practically applying it.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's carry on. So I'm going to looking at the restraint. What does this actually mean? And this is how it is defined in this particular sutta. And this is a kind of standard way that it is defined in the suttas. It's a very common thing. This is called the tense restraint formula, and it's something that you see again and again in the suttas. And this is what it looks like. So here you see a sight. So this is relates to the 6 senses. So the sight, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind, the 6 senses. So you see a sight, okay? And when you see the sight, you don't get caught up in the features and details. And the Pali here is nimitta and vyanjana, I think. I think so, nimitta and vyanjana. So what does that mean? And so whenever we see things, things that we see tend to be either attractive to us, or we tend to not like what we see, or perhaps sometimes it's neutral. This is how we tend to react to the world around us every time we see something. So when you see all the people coming here, then it's very attractive. You think, wow, all my friends in the Dhamma, that's quite nice. And then you might see something which is not so nice, like a toxic waste dump or something like that. You think, oh, yuck, that's terrible. Whatever it is. So we have these reactions to things. And so the idea of features and details here is just that sometimes it may be the whole image that you don't like, the whole image that you see, or it could be an aspect of what you see that you like or don't like. You're reacting either to the whole thing or reacting to an aspect of it. So whatever it is within that, in the seeing that you like or don't like, is included in this. You get caught up. What does it mean to get caught up? And this is kind of the critical thing here to understand what it means to get caught up. So what caught up means that when you see something, and let's say you don't like it or you like it, it resonates in the mind afterwards. You see something beautiful, you walk past a shop, you see something, wow, you're very hungry, you see a beautiful cake or something, you think, wow, that looks really nice, and then you can't get it out of your mind afterwards, and then eventually you run back to the shop and you get it, or something like that, because your craving overcomes you. So this is what it means, it sticks in your mind. And when something sticks in your mind, it means you lose your mindfulness, because you're kind of hanging on to what happened in the past. And of course, the idea in Buddhism is to be mindful, is to always to go with the flow of things. Because when you go with the flow of things and you're mindful, it means you're able to react to every new situation in a skillful way. Because something else comes up, then you might get upset. But if your mind is stuck in the past, you can't really react to that in a good way because you're lost in thought or you're lost in the past or whatever. So getting caught up means that it resonates in your mind. Or you see someone that maybe you're having problems with, and then that gets stuck, a picture of the person gets stuck in your mind, and you can't really get rid of it. I think we all know what this means. So the idea here is to avoid getting stuck in this way and to go with the flow of things. So when you see that cake in the window, you think, oh, impermanent, uncertain. Maybe it's not nice. Maybe it's who knows. Who knows if it's going to, how much satisfaction is it going to give anyway? It will just make me fat if I eat that cake. So forget about it. Just leave it to one side. Or you see that person, you think, okay, actually maybe they're just a person. They're having their problems or whatever. So you use some kind of counter method to reduce or get rid of that desire or that aversion. So this is about desire and aversion to things in the world. You don't get caught up in those desires, in those features, in the thing that you see or anything else.
Yeah, I do have a slide in the next session about
okay.
that. Yeah, you don't get sucked in, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so you are, okay, I'll leave, so just whenever you like to jump in, please jump in.
Thank you.
Because if you leave the faculty of sight unrestrained, he has a word here. I think the Pali word is something like unguarded, maybe, agutta or something like that. I can't remember now what the Pali is, but anyway, if you don't guard this mind, then the unwholesome qualities of desire and aversion, you either like it or you don't like it, they overwhelm you. And when they overwhelm you, your mind gets stuck in the past, gets stuck with those images. And then you cannot be mindful, you cannot move on to the next thing in a positive way. This is what we're trying to do here. I just kind of described this already.
They invade the mind and remain. That's another thing that's
used. That's Vicky Bodhi's translation.
Right.
So this is just Siddhartha's
it's the
same thing.
Same passage, actually.
Become overwhelming.
I kind of like that,
Invade the mind and remain.
Invade the mind and remain.
Sometimes these
the
things
Trojan
are
horse.
memorable. It's the Trojan horse.
Trojan horse.
Trojan horse, yeah. So for this reason, you practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving its restraint. So here you have the idea of protecting here, I think, is gutta. And gutta means that what does it mean to protect? It means you are aware. That's really all it means. You have mindfulness. You have sufficient mindfulness to see what is going on. When you walk past that window, you see that beautiful cake or whatever in there, you realize that desire is about to arise because you are hungry or whatever, or you feel like something sweet or whatever. And so you step back and say, wait a minute, am I really interested in that? Am I going to destroy my peace of mind because of some silly piece of cake? And you kind of, okay, let it go, you don't worry about it. So this is you have to have mindfulness to be able to do that, because otherwise you don't really know what's going on. If your mind is all over the place, then that desire will just come and you will be defenseless against these things that invade the mind, the Trojan horses, the Trojan cakes.
Yes, And you have to be aware of the danger that we will be going into as well, yeah. So as Prem was saying, you know, if we know which mind states it is, that is important.
Yeah, so
because some of them look attractive or even look like, not a big deal.
Yeah. So you know that
your enemy.
That was the previous one, yeah? You know that this gives rise to unskillful qualities, and because you know it's unskillful and it's going to take you away from the path, then you have to use the mindfulness to overcome it. And we're going to go into much more detail later on about how to overcome these things. That is really the critical thing. How do you view the things of the world in such a way that you don't get aversion, you don't get desire? What are the tricks of the trade? The secrets of the trade. Yeah, we're going to get into some of the secrets later on, and then to actually be able to do this properly. And then when you have those two things, you have the guarding of the mind, the mindfulness, and you know the method, you know the tricks of the Buddhist path, to overcome, not to be drawn into those things. Those two things together, they allow you to be restrained. So now you can see, you're starting to get an understanding of what restraint means. It's starting to become more clear. It means two things. It means having mindfulness to be aware of what is going on, and secondly, having the tools and applying those tools in such a way that the mind does not give rise to desire and aversion. And as I mentioned before, these tools are in large part wisdom tools. How to think about the world in a wise way to avoid these things. So this is the practice of restraint. This is the first one, to avoid unwholesome qualities from arising. You can see why this is now, how this works. This is the Buddha's teaching, by the way, right? Remember this. What we're looking at now, this is straight from the suttas. When we talk Teacher Dhamma, there's no messing around. There's just getting back to the Buddha straight away here, except for the occasional picture, of course. But a little bit of messing around is good. But so this, keep in mind, this is how the Buddha teaches. So this is really core Dhamma things. Not only does he teach this, he teaches this again and again and again. These are really critical parts of the path.
Okay, sorry, but you were just talking about wisdom before. And if I might just add compassion in there, very often it's like the two wings of the birds, isn't it? Or the kindness part, because very often we get this idea, now I've read how it is, this is the wisdom, and now I'm going to apply it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well,
so that softness.
The thing is that kindness
is wise.
Is wisdom.
Yeah,
you don't not kind without wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom gives rise to kindness and compassion. So I think wisdom is even more basic probably than kindness and compassion.
Sure.
Yeah. And then you have the same thing for the other senses, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. And all of those work exactly the same way. You have the mindfulness to see what happens, and then you kind of use these tools to move the mind in a different direction. This is the effort to restrain.
Okay. I'm not sure. Is it? We are basically going through the second one,
okay. Okay, sorry.
And this time we can go fairly quickly through the...
This is a slightly different way of looking at restraint. One of the beautiful things about the Buddha Suttas, if you really get into them, is that the same idea is often presented in slightly different ways. And every time it is presented in a slightly different way, it's as if you get a broader understanding of what is going on. Slightly different angles on the same thing. Gradually, it kind of increases your appreciation of what is happening here. So this is one taken from the middle length sayings, Majjhima Nikaya 152. This is the very last sutta of the middle length sayings of the Buddha, called the Indriya Bhavana Sutta, the development of the faculties, meaning the sense faculties in this case. So how do we develop the sense faculties, if you like? And this is what it says. It's the same as the previous one about restraint, but from a slightly different angle. When you see a sight with your eyes, there is liking, disliking, both liking and disliking here. This is what we saw before. You see something and aversion or desire arises. Here, phrased in a slightly different way. Both liking and disliking, maybe sometimes you see something that you have a kind of ambivalent feeling towards. I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it. Sometimes it's best not to say things you are about to say. Right speech, mindfulness.
And right effort as well.
Effort, mindfulness. Stop.
Good example.
Okay, now that's not the right time to say this. Okay, good. I'm glad I had a bit of mindfulness there. So you understand there is liking, disliking, both liking and disliking in me. Yeah, and this is always the first thing, and this, again, this requires mindfulness, as I said before, otherwise you're not aware that this is happening. And also, it requires an appreciation of these qualities. And this is one of the things about the Buddhist path, is that it uncovers these mental qualities gradually, and you see more and more refined versions of these qualities. It takes a lot of mindfulness, it takes a lot of understanding of yourself to really understand these qualities fully, because they can be very subtle, very refined, refined versions of aversion, refined desires, etc. So this sounds simple, but actually it is also quite involved when you take it all the way to the end of the path. And then, having understood the liking, the disliking, that is there, then you reflect on it, and this is how you reflect, yeah? Now this is getting even closer to understanding how this idea of restraint actually works. You reflect, this is conditioned, this is coarse, this is dependently originated. Yeah? And the idea here behind this, when you say something is conditioned and dependently originated, these are the synonyms really, it means that something it's impermanent, it's unreliable. It means that if you like things in the world that are impermanent and unreliable, you're going to be disappointed down the track. Maybe it's better just to stay neutral about those things. Yeah, if I get too attached to these things, it's going to cause me problems. And whenever we get into liking things and into desiring things, we tend to get attached to those things. And then when nature comes and takes it away from you, which nature always will, then you have a problem and you're going to suffer as a consequence. So all this liking is problematic because we tend to hold on to things that are inherently unhold-onable. Is that a word? That's a new word. Yeah, I just coined a new word. But not only are they unhold-onable, I'm going to use that word from now on, yeah. It says here it's also coarse. Yeah, the idea is that the things of the world, when we like things, actually they aren't all that interesting. They aren't all that exciting. They don't really give any real satisfaction. There is another much deeper sense of satisfaction, and that is just often to have a peaceful mind. A mind which is agitated by desires and aversion actually can be quite unpleasant, especially if the desires get very strong. It's really unpleasant. It's like you're being pulled by the nose by the desires in the world, and you don't really feel peaceful. But that mind which is even, which is at ease in the world, is much more refined. These are coarse things. No, I want to go to the refined stuff. Why? Because there's a much deeper, much more satisfying kind of happiness in those things. So this... Sorry.
Would it also imply that it's impersonal? I was just thinking, if something is conditioned, independently originated, then you're like,
You can't control it, it's impersonal.
And if it's another person, or even, if it's nature or a situation,
all of this is impersonal.
Then you are much more willing to let go because you're like, I can't control, as you say.
So you have the three characteristics right there, impermanent, suffering, and non-self are right there in this kind of thing. Yeah, that's exactly right. But what is very interesting about this, it shows you a little bit about how that restraint actually works. Yeah, it is a reflection that is used. You can see here, you think about it in the right way. Yeah, we were saying before, what does restraint mean? It doesn't mean that you have to use willpower. Maybe sometimes it does, but generally speaking, no. Generally speaking, it means this, which is wisdom power. This is using wisdom. Understanding what is really going on, moving towards something better and preferable. That is the ideal way of doing restraint. So you are wise about what is going on. It's very interesting, isn't it? You can start to see here why right view is so important. Yeah, because all these reflections, they only work if they come from right view. Obviously, this is precisely right view to think about things in this way. So you can see how right view what's the right word?
Underpins, or I don't know.
Underpins, is kind of the scaffolding upon all of this thinking, all of these things work based on that, basically. Yeah. So this kind of, now we're moving towards understanding what is going on here, what is meant by restraint. This kind of makes that more clear than the previous expression. That's why I took this one in as well.
I do have a new word for you as well. Don't use willpower, use reflection power.
Reflection power.
Reflection power.
Ah, okay, that's good. Okay. Yeah.
That would
Was it
be an
very
Ajahn Brahmali way of
Yeah.
dealing with things.
Is there a problem with the sun coming in?
For
I'll
yourself.
move a little bit back.
Sure.
Yep.
Whoops.
The sun is getting
Able.
more and more
Yeah, it's moving.
in the way. I think that
It's conditioned.
it's autumn. Yeah. The sun is
It
conditioned.
changes.
You're right. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. And then you continue your reflection. Yeah. And the next part of reflection is that this is peaceful and sublime, namely equanimity. So that evenness of mind, that is where you find peace. That is where you find a sublime, in other words, a refined, much more satisfying kind of happiness and in your life. So you move towards equanimity, the idea of the even mind, yeah, the upekkha. Here is a lower form of equanimity. It's not the higher one that we talk about sometimes in samadhi. Nevertheless, it's the kind of equanimity that you have. And you flow through life, yeah? And a life which is lived like that, where you flow through it, where you have mindfulness, you're not kind of being rocking up and down all the time because of these desires and ill will or whatever. It's a much more pleasant state, much more pleasant to live like that. You have a sense of being in charge of yourself. You're standing back from the world. You're allowing the world to flow by. You're not being pulled in all the time. Yeah? It's a very much more satisfying way to live. Then, because you think like that, the liking, disliking, and both the liking and disliking, they cease. And equanimity becomes established or stabilized as a consequence. Yeah, that's the consequence of thinking in the right way. So if you reflect in the right way, this is what happens. The power of, this is called wisdom power, yeah? This is why it's called powerful, because it actually makes those bad states come to an end and makes the good ones become established.
Okay.
Oh, already?
Well, we're just talking
Okay.
about the second one.
Okay.
And of course it goes through the same sequence there,
Yep.
which we hopefully don't have to go into too much now. It's when you generate enthusiasm, try, arouse energy, exert the mind and strive this time so that existing bad, unskillful qualities are given up. So now, in German you say, now we have the salad, which basically means you're in the problem. The problem is there. You have to make your way out of the problem. So I just want to mention here again, this comes as the second one. So the first one, of course, would be prevention. So if it's possible to prevent things, it's always much, much easier to deal with them. Once they start to establish themselves, they start to generate power, they start to generate energy, and then there is more energy that is needed to counter them, basically. So it's like the train which is just leaving the station, and the train which is going 100 kilometers an hour, and then has to put on the brakes. So, of course, it is much, much more difficult to deal with things at that stage, but we still have ways and means.
Yeah. I think even it says in the sutras that it's almost impossible, once these thoughts become really established, it's almost impossible to overcome them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to wait for them to die down.
Yes.
And so this would be maybe refined versions of these things and not too strong versions.
Yeah, I mean, it just is existing, so wherever it is at that spectrum. And as I was saying, the earlier you realize, the earlier you kick back into your mindfulness, the an easier time you have. And then the other thing, of course, is if you realize, sometimes you can get yourself out of the situation and kind of go back to step one, so to speak, distance yourself and make sure you are not getting drawn in even more. Use skillful means, use your friends. I mean, that's something I'll be mentioning in the second session there as well. That was the summary of this one. And then we go, that's right, we go into the picture there. So, so we have a hindrance there, we have a problem there. And of course, as you can see, the easiest way is the red arrow there. Sometimes we go and just bash our head against the wall because we don't have wisdom, because we don't reflect, because we don't step back and see what's happening, or there's a tunnel there, there's a way around it. So it's the overcoming.
Are those the good bricks or the bad bricks?
Well, I mean, the absence of bricks is actually quite good.
It's quite handy in this case.
This is the long wall of defilement.
Yeah, long wall of defilement.
You have to find your way through. Yes, but so the one aspect is the overcoming aspect here. And the other aspect, of course, is the giving up aspect as well. So if we can learn from the things that have happened so that we don't have the same reactions again and again in the future, that's something which is, of course, very, very useful. And that is then the letting go part. So we had the letting be there and then the letting go. But sometimes letting go also means letting be, which Ajahn Brahmali will say there, or Ajahn Brahm will say.
Ajahn said, letting be leads to letting go. Is that right?
Yes.
Can do.
It can do. Yeah. And that's sometimes what people get so confused about. Should I do something or shouldn't I do something? What is the right approach there? And one thing that kind of stuck in my mind is whatever helps undo the problem which is there. That is our aim. And sometimes you need a little bit of application of something. Sometimes you just need the distance and the calmness, and as you said, it dies away by itself. So it really depends on the situation, what needs to be used, which tool is the right tool. Oh, more light.
You just carry on. I'll sit over here.
Sure. Well, I'm actually pretty much done with that one, because I think the next one is the explanation from the Anguttara 4.14 for giving up.
That's my turn. Okay. So I think we have to. Yeah, we better.
Well, we can wrap up maybe with this one, is there?
No. Yeah. No.
And then, we have another 2 to go, eh?
Yeah. So anyway, so this is the standard way. This is rendered in the suttas for giving up, and this is about the bad thoughts. Yeah, you don't tolerate a sensual, angry, or inconsiderate, is what I've translated this here, thought, but give it up, get rid of it, eliminate it, and obliterate it. So this is when a bad thought has already arisen in your mind. So these are the kind of standard ones: the desire, the anger, inconsiderate, like the coldness of heart. Yeah, you don't have compassion towards someone. You don't care about your effects on other people. This is the vihingsa, vitaka thought. Vihingsa meaning kind of harmfulness. But you get rid of it, eliminate it, obliterate it. And when you use a term like obliterate, it sounds like you're getting the sledgehammer out, and really crushing it. That's what it sounds like. So this is another very interesting point again. What does it mean to obliterate in the suttas? And maybe I should just kind of talk about it very briefly. It's actually very interesting because it does, to me, it sounds like, that the willpower sledgehammer comes out and you use a lot of power and force to overcome these things. But that actually misses the point, because if you want to obliterate something, you want to eliminate something, willpower cannot usually do that. Because what happens when you use willpower is that you hold something down. You use willpower to hold it down. It is still there under the surface. And as soon as you let go, as soon as you relax your willpower, it often comes back. And when it comes back again, it often comes back with a vengeance. It comes back even more strongly. You know what I mean? Because you are tired, or because all this willpower makes you even more irritated, or whatever, I don't know. It comes back even worse than before. But if you, instead of using willpower, if you use this thing we call wisdom power, what you're doing is that you are turning your mind in a different direction. You're attending, you're looking at the object in a new way. Instead of looking at the fault, you're seeing the good qualities in the object or whatever. So when you use wisdom power, if you use it in the right way, you actually really do eliminate the problem. You're not just holding it down, you're looking at the whole situation in a new way. And because of that, the bad thought disappears like that. If you get it right, often you won't get it right, but sometimes you get it right, and it's just gone, just like that. And that is why this is what is meant by obliterating and eliminating something. It can really only be done by reflecting in the right way, by using wisdom power. It cannot be done by willpower. That's kind of fascinating, isn't it? It's very interesting, because it's such a different way of thinking about things. So if you want to have success with this, you have to really use wisdom for this. So you don't tolerate the things, you don't kind of just accept them, and you don't tolerate any. So now we kind of broadens out. We were talking about all kinds of bad qualities before. Any bad, unskillful qualities, but you give them up, get rid of them, eliminate them, and obliterate them, regardless of what they are. Okay, so this is just another idea of right effort. So I thought I would bring this up as well. You make an effort to give up wrong view and to embrace right view. I'm sorry for going a little bit fast now, I'm kind of jumping from one to the next one. But as always, these workshops are far too short. We should really have the whole weekend, and the whole week actually, and many weeks. So this is another very interesting one. You make an effort to give up wrong view and to embrace right view. And the idea here is that to have right view actually also requires a little bit of investing your time. Yeah, so it requires to come to workshops like this. Are we teaching right view? I hope so. Yeah, but for you, the only way that you can know whether we are teaching right view or not, the only way you can know is to go to the suttas and read for yourself. And then you can come up afterwards, you can become a really awkward person. But the sutta says this, and you're saying this. And then we have to explain to you. Yeah, and then if our explanation is not satisfactory, then you should stick with the suttas, of course. But it takes investment and time to get right view. Yeah, you have to understand the teachings of the Buddha, ideally read a little bit of suttas, listening to Dhamma discourses that are aligned with the suttas, not those Dhamma discourses that are not aligned with the suttas. And then gradually you build up right view, and then you reflect on those teachings. And as you do so, your mind changes, and it gets aligned up with the way the Buddha taught, and you start to see the world in accordance with that reality. Again, the importance of right view. This is the effort, right effort in connection with right view. Anyway, I better carry on there.
I think, yeah, there's one more. Oh, no, sorry, that's, yes. Yeah, well,
maybe go back to see the first one again. Yeah.
Yep, this one here. So we are moving to the third one now. So the first two were dealing with the unwholesome mind states that we try to make sure we don't let them arise if they haven't arisen. And once they're there, we make sure we can handle them in a way that they start to die down and that we can eliminate and obliterate them, which is the end goal there, that they don't arise in the future anymore. Or if they do, that they arise less, or that we have tools and ways and means to deal with it. Yeah. Now we are looking at the positive mind states. So we will be focusing in the next session more on the first and the second one to give you more tools and more explanations how these things could be used. And the positive ones are leading more towards the meditation there, isn't it?
They are really about meditation, I would say.
Right, yeah.
As we will see in a second. Yeah. And so because of that, the positive side are really about the next two factors of the path, how to use right effort to develop meditation and things, yeah.
But I do feel, you know, if you are developing metta, for example, as well, that they are applied to kind of get rid of the other ones as well. But once they're practiced, then that's where they're leading, yes. Yeah. Okay, so again, you generate enthusiasm, try, arouse energy, exert the mind, and strive, so that skillful qualities that have not arisen do arise. So you basically kindle those qualities, you get inspired, you read the suttas, you see examples, and you have that enthusiasm and the will to actually develop yourself in that area. So that's over here, the plant, so that also needs a lot of nurturing. It needs a lot of persistence, a lot of commitment. And again, it's not a commitment which is forced. It's a commitment that we do because we understand how important they are. We commit to another person, for example, because we know that there is beautiful qualities that will get developed and cultivated through that process. And that is then the let it grow factor. And in the sutta here, it says...
So this is how it is defined in the suttas. Yeah, the idea of developing what it means in the suttas is the following. Yeah. You develop the awakening factors of mindfulness, investigation of qualities or principles, energy, rapture, tranquility, stillness, and equanimity. And these are the 7 factors of awakening. And they are all really about meditation practice. The first one is mindfulness, yes, that is about satipatthana, about watching the breath, that sort of thing. And it ends up with stillness, which is samadhi, and equanimity, which are all about deep meditation states. So this is all about meditation. All of those qualities in between there are qualities you give rise to in your meditation practice to take it forward. And that is why I said that this, a lot of the last two factors, even though I fully agree with you that it's about metta as well, and these are really, here it focuses on the qualities of meditation. And this is for a future workshop maybe. If there is such a thing, it really depends on whether conditions give rise to a future workshop. We don't know. This is all non-self, so we don't know. So we with a bit of I don't know. I was going to say luck, but I'm not sure what the right word is. Anyway,
But it is interesting, you know. I mean, the energy that we were talking about before, that is needed. It's like a catch-22 there as well. you do need some mindfulness. You do need some energy from somewhere, because otherwise the defilements will just run your life, basically. Yeah. Unfortunately, so it is a bit of a.
But this energy here is also higher energy.
Sure.
It's a kind of energy upon energy. There's kind of various degrees of energy.
And that takes you straight into meditation. Yes.
Yeah. And then it says, which rely on seclusion, fading away, cessation, and ripen as letting go. So this is a very exciting statement. What do you think? Is that kind of exciting? Quite interesting, isn't it? Unfortunately, we're not going to talk about it. So I'm being very naughty. So this is, I'm saying this because the next workshop, we'll talk about this. This is to kind of give you a preview so you come back for the next one. Yeah, wow, that's really fascinating, isn't it? So now don't have craving to know about this one, because that will lead you astray. But I'm just kind of, this is preview, happening at the Buddhist center near you in the future.
But please come to the next workshop as well, because if you go to the Samyuttas, that's exactly what it says. Together with the Eightfold Path, you should practice.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
Seclusion, fading away, cessation, and ripening, letting go.
We did actually talk about it in the beginning.
Yeah.
So we have already talked about it. But, so I'm
no, but these things, again, they do come together. And you try to do as much as you can in the different areas. And then they come together at some point where they reach the rightness or the ripeness, where they become right of you. And then it goes from there. But you have to start somewhere. And use whatever you can, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's yours.
Aha. Yeah. Hang on, but why is it coming now? That's the last one.
Oh, it's in the wrong place.
It's in the wrong place.
Uh-oh.
Anyway.
What happened?
Right, well, I can start with this. So the next one is actually the maintaining and preserving of the beautiful states that have arisen. So that's what I talked about before. You know, you don't destroy them. And the example here for the parents and for the teens was, you know, when they have actually cleaned up their room for once, after you've told them so many times, you praise them, first of all, and you encourage them to maintain it. It's so much easier to maintain your room in a good state and, you know, carry on doing that. And if you don't, then it gets messy, and then you have less, you know, enthusiasm and less willingness to actually clean it up. So it's so important, as I said before, that we see the value, that we maintain and preserve it. And that would be the letting it show part, the letting it glow, or letting it shine as well. Sometimes in Buddhism, some people feel, you know, we shouldn't be talking about our virtues. We shouldn't be talking about our good qualities, because if we do that, you know, we're just full of ourselves or whatever it is. But if we don't bring these beautiful qualities into the world, if these things are not sometimes brought up in the media or in the newspapers or wherever it is, then people won't be able to be inspired by good examples. They won't be able to see those good qualities within themselves. Very often, I mean, we'll be talking about in the second session as well, you reflect on your good qualities. And if you do that in the right way, it creates the beautiful energies that do propel you into meditation and that lead to more purity. And that's what we are after. So it's not I'm more pure than you are, or I'm more ethical than you are, but we want to bring more beautiful qualities into this world. And when we see the beautiful qualities outside ourselves, encourage them there, see them within ourselves, and embrace them, then they will grow, and then we will be able to maintain them much more easily.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always found that one of the nice things about the Buddhist teaching is precisely that double thing. On the one hand, you have the ancient suttas, which are there at the background, very inspiring. On the other hand, you have the people who manifest those suttas in their conduct. And that actually gives rise to a lot of faith and inspiration, because when you see That's making the suttas come alive. You see, wow, this person is just like they say in the suttas. Whoa, it's amazing. Yeah. See someone who is really cool, kind, doesn't have any defilements. It's actually very inspiring when you see that. And it kind of gives you that extra boost, that necessary, because otherwise it can get too dry if you just read in the suttas.
And that's what we chant in the Itipiso, Vicharana Sampanno. So the Buddha is impeccable in conduct, but in knowledge, but also in conduct, so it shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is how it is defined in the suttas, the idea of preserving. Yeah, we just seen the result with a beautiful desk, but this is how
it's more worldly.
It's a bit more worldly. This is how it is expressed in the suttas. You preserve a meditation object or subject. That's a fine foundation for stillness. Stillness here is samadhi. Foundation is nimitta, or some, nimitta. So in other words, if you are already meditating and you're doing well, you stick to that. You don't give it up. So now you will be a bit surprised probably to see what that fine foundation for samadhi is, because maybe you think it's the breath or something, but no. In this case, it is the perception of a skeleton. The worm-infested corpse, the livid corpse, a split open corpse, a bloated corpse. So this doesn't mean that you have to meditate on these things. This is actually a very subsidiary meditation subject in the suttas. It only occurs in a very few cases. So this is just really to be understood as an example. You could have put breath in there, and the breath would probably be more accurate because the breath is really the meditation subject that is most often talked about in the suttas. But you stick to it. You keep on practicing. You develop it further, bringing it to completion, whereby the samadhi and the whole path really comes together. That's kind of the idea here.
And we don't actually have the formula, so that somehow got lost, the formula of the fourth one, because I wanted to point out there the formula of the first three, it's usually just one sentence which says, okay, if they haven't arisen, make sure they don't arise. If they have arisen, get rid of them. Yeah. If the good ones haven't arisen, please let them grow. But with that one, it has like so many terms. The Buddha just drives the point and says you have to maintain it. You have to. I can't remember all the words, but there's 4 or 5 words.
Terrible,
in there.
it got lost.
Oh well, that's okay. We can maybe find it and show it in the second session. Yeah. But we got through it. So let it be, let it go, let it grow, and let it show. Yeah. And let's have lunch.
Okay, please have a nice lunch, everyone, and we'll see you again 12:15.